Hello, welcome to episode 3 of the OK podcast. Today we have Kenny, who joined us, who couldn't join us last time, and then Yichin as always.
There you go.
I'm back.
Yep. So today we're going to be talking about the shadow cards and anything that we think stands out about them. So I guess we will start with Levia.
Yeah, I suppose we'll get straight into it. We're on a time limit today, so we're skipping all of the fancy introductions and just going straight into some reviews.
Not that we really
Yeah,
had any
so-
introductions.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I always
Alright.
have a lot to say.
Yep.
But let's
Alright.
speed it. So Levia.
So one of the things I want to mention about her is that I did not like her ability on first read just because it was incredibly narrow in application. Given the design space of Shadow and what it looks like is going to be an expansion of like the Shadow talent in the future, it might not be as restrictive as I initially think it is. But otherwise, if you're not building Levia's package, all she is just a blank card. So I'm not a big fan of her design itself. I think gameplay wise it works out just fine and plays well, but from a design standpoint it looks a little restrictive.
Yeah, so for me, I feel like Levia is easily what I see as the weakest hero flat out. Like I'm willing to go out there and say that I think specifically in classic constructed, which is where I talk about it, I think she will be the weakest hero in the game because she is the only hero in the game that doesn't actually have a positive ability. So even with Chain, as an example, who we'll cover later on, Chain, yes, does have a downside, but it comes with an upside. Levia simply just has a way to mitigate the inherent downside of cards.
Okay, and then let's go on to Hexcore then. It's a little better than I thought it was, but I also thought it was like almost trash level. So I do think it's I think it's playable. I know that Team Covenant and some other smaller personalities in terms of skill level, no offense to them, have been experimenting with the card to some moderate success. So I do think that there is some hope for Hexcore to be playable. It probably relies on a completely different build of Levia than the normal Meat Axe or Romping Club, though. So while it's cool, I do hope it's playable eventually, though, because it's a really fun-looking card.
Yeah, it requires like an extra action point, right? But the problem is you can't really use it at the beginning of the game, and that's when Levia really needs to attack.
Needs to chip damage, yeah.
Without using
I do think that
cards,
if you're building for Hexacore, right, you're building all these go-again attacks, you're probably running a lot of like non-banishing cards that you can just use on your turn. So in that sense, because your late game is going to be more consistent, you can reasonably get more cards out of their hand on average and maintain tempo. So I don't know. I think there's a build to be made there. It's not going to be by me or us, but I do think it has potential.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was testing it out a little bit, and I was not happy. I was like, I want to attack, but I don't want to deal 6 damage to myself. But yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah. I mean, in this situation, you're not blocking with everything. You're blocking with like 2 cards during your early game.
Yeah, I mean, you would still need to banish them somehow, and that takes a couple turns to banish, right? So
I wonder if there's any chance for a deck that pivots that can have 2 different builds inside of it in classic constructed. I know it's somewhat it's a thing in Magic where you have a transformative sideboard where you sideboard into a different deck later on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how viable a strategy that is in Fab, but I do think it might be possible where you have a regular Romping Club Levia against faster decks, and then a slower Hexacore Levia against slower decks.
Maybe. I did do something like that with my Prism deck, but yeah, it's better to focus on one thing in my opinion for Fab.
Yeah, usually that sort of thing is only a meta call where you want to surprise people, right?
Yeah, All right. Well, on to the next card.
We'll go to Hooves of the Shadow Beast. I think is a very interesting comment. I think it's actually probably better than Scabskins and Levia because you really, really want to avoid that one roll on Scabskins where you just lose your entire turn and take 12 in blood debt at the end of the game.
Yeah, and it's also good in Blitz where you only need to have that one big tempo turn to swing the game as well. Otherwise, in Classic Construct, I think Levi's a little bit weaker since people can just tank her hits because you have that bigger life pool. And she's not dealing 90% of your life every turn. But yeah, I think Hooves of the Shadow Beast is a good card, great card, especially for a comic.
I think Hooves of the Shadow Beast is a fine card. It's good. It's very similar to refraction bolters, right? And that's effectively a 1 battle worn that gives you go again when you need to. So I don't have any inherent problem with it. I think it's a good card. Again, doesn't work with Hexagore, but on its own, it's fine. I like that it feels like it could be an okay option in place of Scab Skin if you really need that guarantee.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Consistency is what you're going to be struggling with most in Brute anyway. So having a little bit of guarantee is nice.
Yeah. I was going to say, it does actually feel as though Levia doesn't seem to lean as heavily into the randomness as much as the others do. Like, she does still have, like, remove random cards from your graveyard, but because you removed so many, the chances of you missing are so low.
Right.
So I don't feel as though it's quite as random. Whereas sometimes, even if you're playing Rhinar really effectively, you do have turns where sometimes it's like, well, 50-50 that this actually works.
Yeah, with Rhinar, it's more like the game itself is dictating how you play, where you basically you take advantages of the opportunity that your luck gives you. Whereas with Levia, you are trying to minimize the amount of the luck factor of the game, and you're trying to set your own tempo despite having to rely on random mechanics to do so.
Yeah. Yes, the one thing I would say I'm a bit concerned about with Levia as well is that Levia feels like you always need to be on the offensive, because if there's ever a turn where you can't banish cards from your discard pile, you'll just explode anyway.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to be racing with the opponent.
Yeah. Or if you whiff
that's why
really
it's really
hard.
important that there's all these get out of jail free cards that in her pool. And I think those are the super important cards for her to have, just so that, especially in Classic Constructed, so that you can have those turns where you're like, I need to block with 3 cards this turn, and therefore I need to have a way to get out of jail, like get something in banish and survive.
Want to go on to the next card?
Deep Rooted Evil.
So this is like a 6 power attack, yellow, cost 3, blood debt. Initially playing with this, or initially looking at this, I didn't think it was like that amazing. But once I play with it, I realized what it's like actually meant for, which is conserving your graveyard, but also like your attacks in the beginning of the game where you don't actually have any graveyard. So like Dread Screamer into Deep Rooted Evil is completely fine for me, but also Underworldly Bellow is nice. So I think it's a pretty good staple for Levia actually.
Yeah, and it does have that issue of not having any defensive value, which a lot of her cards do that. So you can't include too many of them because Levia needs to be defensive early on. But you also the other effects that the cards include are so good that I feel like you need to include like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I look, I haven't played with it really at all, but just kind of my first impression of it is it just seems like a very meh card. Like I'm sure what you pointed out is true, Oliver, as far as it gives you an option to always play from banished zone. It will then send itself to the graveyard, which means it's ready to be banished later on. But it's not exciting. It just looks like a okay card. If I compare it to things like in other classes, like the mythics and the other classes like Steelblade Supremacy or Mordred Tide, etc., those cards are very explosive. This just feels like a very middle of the road, maybe a necessary card, but not something that you're ever really excited to play. I feel like any turn where you actually play Deep Rooted Evil, you're going to be very disappointed.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, usually I feel like it's one of those mythics that would have been a super back in Arcan WTR. So I think as a like generic myth, or as like a middle of the road mythic, I think it works just fine. It's one of those just cards that you want to have as an option, but you don't want too much of. So that's why it's majestic instead of rare.
To get on a soapbox for a sec, I'm just going to say that I hate the idea of distinguishing between cards based on rarity. Like, I mean, here I am comparing it to the other M's because that's just the way the game's been designed. But when you talk about this would have been a super, it's like, it almost sounds like this card is not good enough to be an M, so it would have been an S, if that makes sense. But I hate that design ethos.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why that's partly why they got rid of it. So I'm glad they got rid of it. Where M is just things that we shouldn't have 9 copies of at this point.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. Like that makes sense. Like that's totally fine. But yeah, the power level thing is a bit iffier. Anyway, do I go into Mark of the Beast?
Sure.
This one I'm not a fan of. I know Oliver likes it. I'm mostly not a fan of it just because if you block with it early on, it effectively reads defense 0. Otherwise, you're gonna start losing life to Blood Debt.
Yeah.
So I'm not super excited about it. There's no real good way to put it in your graveyard on your turn other than attacking with it. So it's a good I have 2 cards in hand and I need to make an attack to banish something.
Yeah, I think
But
that's
at
what
that
I
point, it's
like it
just
for. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think at that point, if you have 2 cards in hand, you might as well just have another like Dread Screamer, Writhing Beast Hulk, or anything that just exiles 3.
I just like it because it just gives you easy lines of play with Who's the Shadow Beast. Once you close the combat chain, you can activate Who's the Shadow Beast to get that go again. But also,
Oh.
yeah, it's just like a good starter to try and get back tempo. And I just think it's good at every stage of the game where you just can attack with it and not have to worry about blood debt for the turn. So
Yeah.
I think it's just like a good tempo starter. That's all.
Mhm.
Yeah. When I look at it, yeah, I'm in the same boat as Yichin. I don't think it's very good. I mean, I look at this card in the context of the whole game, and it's basically just a 2-cost 6 attack, which is that slightly above curve? I think that's
I
very
think it's
slight.
average.
It's very slightly above curve.
Yeah, it's very slightly above. So it's a very slightly above curve attack that has an ongoing downside, right? Like basically, blood debt for most intents and purposes is a downside, right? Levia just happens to mitigate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, slightly above curve with downside. Like it's okay. I appreciate that it does banish itself, so it does trigger Levia, which then stops its downside for a turn. But see, the fact that a card like this needs to exist in order to allow Levia to have that get out of jail free turn is really indicative to me of just how weak Levia will be. Again, I'm happy to be wrong. Look, I'm happy to eat my words when World Championships gets won by Levia and she's the dominant thing in the format, right? But on first look, it just this card basically does nothing. It just says don't have a downside for a turn.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think you're going from a constructive point of view, right? I was thinking from a more blitz point of view. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Always take my stuff from a constructed point of view.
I was thinking from blitz because that's what we've been
even from
playtesting
blitz
with.
though. Yeah, even from blitz though, the main thing is that you really want Carrion Husk as Levia just so that you can conserve life on the turn where you want to take back tempo, and this works against Carrion Husk. So you block with it early, you lose 1 or 2 life to blood debt, and then you get pummeled by something, and wow, now you lost your Carrion Husk and the game's basically over.
Yeah, well, maybe we need to play test it more, but yeah, I'm liking it for now, but maybe it'll change in the future.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, Shadow of Blasphemous. So this one is a 2-cost 6 attack with an upside. Draw and discard a random card. If a card with 6 or more power is discarded this way, search your deck for a card with blood debt, banish it, and then shuffle your deck. I mean, this is one of those unreliable banishes that you really don't want to rely on when you need the banish for it, right?
Yeah.
And otherwise, you're basically banishing Deep-Rooted Evil, and that's it.
Yeah, and also blocks for 0, so not great.
Yeah. Given the existence
this just seems awful.
Yeah. Given the existence of other 2-cost 6 power attacks in generic that are just plain better, I'm not super excited about this.
Totally agree. I look at this card and my immediate thoughts are just it's garbage. Like, why would I ever play it? I mean, if I was Reiner, I don't know, maybe I'd want an extra way to discard a random card or something like that. But obviously, you can't play this in Reiner, so it's just locked in Levia, and it's just it's bizarre. Like again, like how many different cards with blood debt do you actually want to banish? Like, yeah, I know there are some in Straight Shadow which do some things, but it doesn't feel like randomly banishing them sometimes always an upside. I understand that. I understand how unique thing counts cards with blood debt in your banish zone, but yeah, I just don't see it as that much of an upside. I feel like if anything, you're probably going to go get deep rooted evil with this, but
that's about it.
Anyway,
yep.
Yeah, that's that like deep rooted evil and ... That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Moving on
to
my favorite brute card.
Yeah, Endless Maw. This is a meaty attack. It's nice. I like it. 3 costs seems a little bit prohibitive in brute since it usually just wants to run reds and yellows. But it's at least red Endless Maw is a nice attack just to try and take back some tempo or deal some damage on an off turn where you only have 2 cards in hand.
Yeah. But I mean, even if you don't hit, right? It's 9 attack for 3. which is pretty above curve.
Yeah, it's
Oh
but
yeah,
honestly, if your deck is constructed well, you miss like 1%, 2% of the time.
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like I assume I look at this card and I read it as 9 attack.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like 9 attack with a slight cost.
Yeah.
I doubt you're ever really going to be in a situation where if you banish 3 cards, you don't hit a 6 attack thing. On the off chance that you do, yeah, look, it's 3 for 6, which is not ideal. But it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's still essentially card parity where opponents will be blocking for 3 on average with each card. So 6 attack for 3. It's still okay.
Yeah, it's still good. And as I said, I really doubt that that's going to come up that often.
Yeah.
So I see these as 3 cost 9, 8, 7. And I think that red and yellow are pretty great. I think even blue may end up having a place just because of the pitch 3 and the fact that it's still a 7 attack if you need to. Which is, again, it's not the biggest attack ever, but it's not bad.
Okay.
Shall we go on to Writhing Beast Hulk?
Yeah. So in terms of flavor, I'm still not 100% sure if these like brute creatures are supposed to be things that Levia summons, or if she's just imitating their attacks.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna ask the exact same thing. It's just like I don't know what the flavor of all of these cards are. It's similar with the rampage. I don't remember what they're called, but the rampaging great horn thing and whatever. Like, are you summoning the beast and the beast is coming to hit the opponent, or are you imitating the beast, or I don't know. But continue.
So, again, this is one of the cards where you only want to run the red card if you do want to run it. It's not as exciting as Endless Maul, but it's free dominate essentially, and it's just essentially filler. Nothing too crazy, but free dominate's nice.
Yeah, I'm not too big on it. It's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty underwhelming. I think that ultimately with Dominate's good when you have on-hit effects, right? Dominate's not just necessarily good on its own. If you're trying to finish the game out and you're coming in with this with like a pummel or something like that, yeah, I can see the Dominate being valuable. But it's, in the middle of the game, just being like, here's 6, but you can only block with 1 card. I think most of the time people will go, okay, I'll block with 1 and take 3.
Yeah.
Like it's, who cares?
Obviously, it's better in Blitz where that 3 life is more valuable and
Yeah.
And they really
Again, I'm always thinking about classic constructed.
Yep.
So take all that with a grain of salt. In Blitz, obviously that Dominate is better because it is a much higher proportion of your life total.
Okay, so next card, Convulsions from the Bellows of Hell. I've mentioned this a couple times just because I love the name. But after playing with it, I'm not super excited about it. This one is one that you just want to... I feel like if you're running this card, you're running it for the Dominate and not for the boost in attack power. And while it's good with stuff like Graveling Growl or some other like meaty attack like Deadwood Rumbler, I never feel it's a very great play.
Yeah, I think
Look,
Dominate's only...
It's got one of the best names out of all of the cards from the new set for sure. It's just absolutely over the top. But yeah, the main problem I see with it is it does have quite an upside as far as, +3 and Dominate is pretty big. But that cost is so high. So being able to assemble a hand, with Convulsions and a meaty attack like an Endless Maw, you need a yellow pitch, a blue pitch, the Endless Maw, the Convulsion. So that's a 4-card hand to do, 12 with Dominate, which is big, admittedly, right? It's a big hit. But it's a big hit that you'll probably have to take beforehand.
Yeah, it's a big hit they have to take beforehand, and it's a big hit that's coming up right after it because they are only blocking with 3 cards. One card.
It's a great turn 1 play.
And a great last turn play.
Sorry, it's a good turn 1 play if you manage to also have 6 cards on your discard pile. So just completely ignore everything that I said.
All right.
Okay.
That's the next one.
So I guess we're moving on to the commons now. I guess there's not much to say about each individual one because at least with Boneyard Marauder, I think there's not much to say about it just because it's just okay, right? It's just there.
Yeah.
It's
filler. It's like Savage Swing but less exciting.
Deadwood Rumbler is, I think, worthy of talking about because I don't think it feels like a common in terms of being super necessary for her kit. But I do like the card at common. because it's a good swing to have on turn 1 or turn 2 or turn 3 when you're trying to fill up the graveyard. No defense is a little disappointing, but for a 3-cost 8 attack that lets you fill up your graveyard, or basically fills up 2 cards in graveyard, and that's great. I know Oliver's been burned twice with it because he played it with nothing to banish except the Blood Dead card. So
Yeah.
that was.
I mean,
That was on
you
turn
couldn't
one,
banish
right?
from your opponent's graveyard.
Well, it was my turn 1, so there was nothing in their graveyard.
But
yeah,
it's
okay.
it's rough.
Yeah, I think it's just fine overall. I think I like this as a common because it is good filler, but there are some stuff you can take out for it or take it out for.
Look, it's a big hit, right? 3 for 8.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Yeah.
And yeah, I totally agree. One thing I like about this is it doesn't really rely on you at all having anything to do with Blood Debt, right? You can just use it as a big hit. You can discard a card, and then you don't have to banish Blood Debt if you don't want to. So you can even use it to like snipe stuff from your opponent's discard pile if that ends up being relevant.
If they run like Remembrance or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's open and flexible, so that's neat. Yeah, I think it's fine. I have no problem with it. I could see the red and the yellow being played.
Yeah. I like the blues a lot because it pitches for 3 and it also has 6 power. So yeah, that's alright.
These ones are ones where you at least want, I think, 2 play sets of. They don't block for anything, which kind of contributes to Levia not having super nice blocking turns. But they're good enough filler, and they make up a decent part of her early game kit. I think you need to include it.
All right, onto Dread Screamer.
Yeah, Dread Screamer is my favorite of her commons. Actually, no, that's wrong. I like Graveling Growl more, but Dread Screamer is more important for her. So, like, one of the issues we're talking about with Levia was that after she banishes, or after she starts banishing stuff from her graveyard, she really wants to maintain that tempo. And Dread Screamer is the #1 way you're going to get there because it's a 6 damage hit with Go Again, essentially. And that's threatening at least 10 damage per turn. So Dread Screamer plus a whatever weapon hit is super important for being able to maintain tempo and maintain a high enough life total so that you can outrace them.
Yeah, I think that right next to Endless Maw, this is probably my #2 card for Shadow Brute. Dread Screamer is awesome. It's everything that what's it called? The Rhinar equivalent that I can't remember. Anyway, Rhinar has an equivalent which discards a random card from hand, and if it discards a card from 6 or more, you get Go Again. That's too hard to make work because you just need so many cards in hand to actually get it off and still be able to attack with something afterwards. Whereas Dread Screamer is not as heavy on your hand.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a great card.
Yeah, and immediately after that, we have the best follow-up, which is Graveling Growl, a 1 mana or 1 resource attack for 7, but you can only play it if you have banished a card with 6 or more attack. So if your deck isn't built around it, you don't really want to play this. But I feel like if you're consistently able to get 2 hits in, one of which is a thing that banishes, this is an amazing attack because it's cheap. You can play it off of a blue, like Dread Screamer into Graveling Growl off of a blue is a really nice turn. 13 damage, 3 cards. Great stuff.
Yeah, and one thing to note is that this is one of the few cards that Levia has to block Herald of Triumph with because it's 7 power. The red one, at least.
That is true, yes. Yeah. Prism's attacks will always do -1 to you, or some of the attacks will.
Yeah, the Herald of Triumph
-1. Yeah, so Graveling Growl is super important just to be able to block those Phantasm cards with a 6 power attack.
Yeah, and this synergizes super well with the pumps that Levia has as well, like Unworldly Bellow and House from Beyond or whatever it's called.
Yeah, all the pumps that banish cards. Great stuff.
Yeah, I like Graveling Growl. I think it's just a nicely designed card in that it's got a restriction, but it's an above curve attack. It's
above curve attack. It's a restriction that's fun to activate because it's always like a small puzzle to figure out how to best activate it. And I think
it feels satisfying.
Yeah, but the fact that it costs 1 too, you can play it after Dread Screamer with just 1 blue is just. I think this is so much better than Boneyard Marauder in my opinion, but yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of stuff that's not better than Boneyard Marauder, we're going to Marauder Beast, which is it's also the 7 power attack, which blocks the Phantasm, but I'm never excited to play this just because it just seems boring. I don't even like the art. The art's kind of just generic.
Yeah, again, what is going on? I mean, it kind of looks like kaiju-y almost, right? He's like climbing up a building.
Yeah.
Just going to come leaping down. How big are these monsters?
I have no clue. Like Dread Screamer is like slightly smaller than human sized, right? And he's doing a 6-power attack, while this humongous beast is doing a 7-power attack. So
how do you know it's humongous if there's no banana for scale?
That's true. Maybe it's teeny tiny. It's a teeny tiny whatever that is.
He's climbing up a model building, like one of those tiny model buildings that architects use.
It's actually an imp.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. All right, we've solved it. But yeah, no, I think this card's pretty crap.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like if Boneyard Marauder was crap and it costed 1, making it cost 1 more and have 1 more attack does not make it better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, and then lastly, Unworldly Bellow.
I really like this one. It's very efficient pumps, and yeah, it just synergizes a lot with the cards that are available in Levia's pool.
Yeah, I always want to use it with an attack that doesn't banish, just because I like to conserve my graveyard as much as possible. So this into like Deadwood Rumbler, Growling Growl, or some other 2-cost attack is usually my line of play where I feel great about using it.
Deadwood Rumbler's 3 resources.
Oh yeah, true.
But yeah.
Well, Deadwood Rumbler plus
Final plus Tunic.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Unworldly Bellow is fine. Again, I like pumps generally. I play them in most of my decks. I mean, I think most people play pumps of some variety, but you know, Unworldly Bellow is a fine pump.
Yep.
It's not my favorite brute. It's not my favorite brute pump. I mean, if you even consider it just as an example, like if you compare it to Awakening Bellow Red, Awakening Bellow is 3 attack and Intimidate versus 1 less attack. The only upside of this is you banish 3 cards from your discard pile. So it's weird in that if you have a high concentration of the cards that banish from your discard pile anyway, I think Awakening Bellow and even Primeval Bellow, or Primal Bellow, whichever one it is, may actually end up being better than Unworldly Bellow is. Or maybe a mix. I don't know.
One thing to note for this one is that it only affects Brute or Shadow cards, but Convulsions from the Bellow of Hell affects your next attack or something.
Oh, true. So you can.
It's next attack action. You can use generic attacks.
Yeah. So yeah, this one kind of restricts your deck building, but the other one allows you to play like Command and Conquer and stuff.
Yeah.
But like
Convulsions from the Bellows of Hell into Command and Conquer.
Yeah. Well, Commotion is like it costs 2, so it's never as satisfying to play. Whereas Unworldly Bellow costs 1, so it's always like neatly fits into your turn.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying like Convulsions is good all of a sudden. It's just like this does restrict your deck building a little bit to make it synergize better.
True.
That's all. I still like the card.
Okay. Alrighty, shall we get on to Chain? We may end up only finishing Chain today. We'll see how we go with the time.
Yeah, let's see. One thing I want to say, just as we're finishing up Levia stuff, I'm not sure if I enjoy it or if I don't enjoy it, but I do find it interesting that all of these, like half of the text on the cards are, when you're standing alone and reading it by itself, they look like downsides. Like all of Growling Growl is a downside on the card, but with Levia, it's something that you want to do regularly. So it's hard to evaluate a hero without looking at their entire package. And Levia is
without the context.
So Shadow Runeblade, Chain. Yeah, I will say that art-wise, I really like Chain's design in his adult hero form, but I don't like how greasy he looks. He looks like a big slime ball, and like a slightly dirtier Severus Snape.
You don't like Severus Snape?
Alan Rickman is a nice actor.
Yeah,
no, he likes Severus Snape. He just doesn't like a slightly dirtier, slightly grimier Severus Snape.
Yeah, he looks like he's the type of guy who, like, I don't know. He doesn't look good, which I guess is the point of Shadow Runeblade. But he just looks like.
I
get what you're saying. I actually think that, like, so it's very interesting, and I at least it's consistent with Levia as well. But like looking at Levia and Levia's adult form and Chain's, young Chain and Chain's adult form, is they look wildly different. Right?
True.
Like I don't actually, when I look at Chain's young hero version, I don't actually think it's the same hero. Whereas if I look at all of the other ones, Rhinar being the exception, Rhinar doesn't really look like Rhinar. But most of the other ones are fairly consistent, that you can still see the hero there. Whereas both the Shadow heroes look wildly different in their adult form. Levia more so. But
obvious reasons. Yeah. Yeah, I
mean,
do see that.
Yeah, I guess with Viserai, you can see he's transforming, so at least it's believable.
Yeah.
Whereas, anyway, as far as mechanically speaking, I think Chain's pretty exciting. I mean, he's got a big ability, two actions per turn effectively, with a big downside, which can also fuel into an upside. So as far as design stuff goes, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I do think the more interesting part of him is when you don't use his ability, right? When you have to be prudent and plan a couple turns ahead to make sure you have enough gas to finish out the game. So I think Chain, the first instinct of playing Chain is just to shackle every turn, right? But at a certain point, there are certain points where you have to be like, okay, I can have a decent turn without using the go again. So I'm not going to do this because I'd rather preserve, 4 or 5 extra cards in my deck at the end of the game so I can get that extra turn to close out the game.
Yeah. He's an exercise in restraint.
Yeah. So
you need to chain yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
No, that's it. That's it for me.
Let's go to Galaxy Black. Your stripper.
Yeah, the stripper name sort of. I do like it. It's so I realize that Nebula Blade is better for the most part because you're gonna have a lot of resources as Chain, and it's 4 attack rather than 3, which is really important for blocking purposes. However, I want to play this card. It looks fun. It's a very cheap attack for 3 damage when you get going, and I don't know, it just feels nice.
You just want to play with the alt art, don't you?
I do. I don't have the alt art, but I do want to play with it, and I do think that having the alt art is cool. So yeah, maybe it's a little bit like that.
Maybe it's that. Yeah, I was gonna say I do. I think the alt arts are probably the best way to do high rarity. I'll go do a rant about rarity later on, but like alt art stuff, which is super rare, is pretty cool, right? So as it like the full bleed Dorinthia card from Crucible as an
Twinning
example.
Blade?
Twinning Blade.
Yeah,
Twinning Blade.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. That's cool, right? Like I really appreciate that, and I think it's totally fine when cards are like fabled and you may want them. That's a completely separate thing. But that's an aside to the actual mechanics of the card. I mean, mechanically, I think it's fine. I don't think it's super exciting. I think Nebula Blade is much better. It's just it gets blocked by 1 card.
Yeah,
that's long and short of it is it gets blocked by a card. And then it does nothing.
To go back to your earlier point about doing alt art instead of high rarity only cards, I do think that Galaxy Black might be like a kind of test ground where they want to see like, okay, if we offer the super generic version and also offer a super rare version, how will that will people still want to collect it? And very clearly, since it's the most expensive card in the set right now, other than the Fabled, I think people are responding well to it. So I do hope they'll do more of it in the future instead of having must-have legendaries.
Yeah, exactly. For example, like just a thought. You can, Legend Story Studios, you can take this if you want. I'm sure you probably thought of something of it. But like, imagine being able to just get an alt art hero. How much does art for a hero cost? Probably some amount, but it's not a huge amount to get an alt art. I'm talking about from the production side. But then, making an alt art hero that was like, shiny everywhere, cold foiled, all this kind of stuff. Imagine Dorinthia looking like an absolute champion. Everyone is going to want that, right? Because heroes are such iconic cards. And same with Galaxy Black. Twinning Blade is not, for a few reasons. It's not very good at the moment, but also the other thing is that it's in your deck. Right? So you don't see the foiling as much. You can't show it off. That's right. Yeah, you can't intimidate your opponent from turn 0. So yeah, I think if they keep making alt arts of like the starting in play cards, like equipment and heroes and stuff, that'll really, really capture the love of a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be easier with heroes because it's easier to make alt art of a person rather than alt art of a weapon.
100%, 100%.
But I would like to see like so a lot of the weapons and equipment right now are just the weapon or equipment in a generic context. I think the only one that's unique is Talishar, the Lost Prince, in terms of like background. So having alt art where it's actually like some chain is using it or like retracting it, like for Galaxy Black, that would do they'll do wonders for collectability.
Oh, for sure.
Okay,
Anyway,
so financial talk aside.
Yep. Shadow of Ursa.
Yep.
So first off, rest in peace, Mira, author of Berserk. This card is pretty much a love letter, flavor-wise and art-wise, to him.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, I do like the card itself, mostly because it's just a go again attack, and it pitches for blue, so you always want to pitch it when it's in your hand. So yeah, it's part of Chain's bread and butter, but it's another one of those cards where you want this card in your deck, but you also don't want 9 of these in your deck.
By you don't want 9 of them, do you mean like if you could play 9 of them, you wouldn't? Or
As in, I don't want for balance reasons, I don't want to see I don't want to see a deck with 9 of these. So
yes, yeah, I was that's what I was clarifying, because I was like, no, this card's fantastic. Like, it's really good. Or at least that's my first impression of it. I mean, it's a 0-cost attack with Go Again, effectively, and then you just banish a card from your hand with Blood Debt to, get that Go Again. Lo and behold, Chain's cards all play from the banish zone, so it's not even like necessarily a downside. Is it Chain's cards? Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah, and there's some
Yeah,
shadow.
it is. You play, yeah, sorry. And yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh no, a downside. It's what we talk about with Levia, right? It seems like a downside, but for Chain, it is much more obviously an upside. Whereas, as I said, for Levia, it's just mitigating a downside.
Exactly. And for some of the attacks, since they have an extra ability if you play it from Banish Zone, banishing it for Shadow of Ursa is the correct play 99% of the time.
So it feels good, right? Like you want to do it.
And it feels bad for the opponent because it's a 2-attack card. And 2 damage attacks never feel that great to block with a 3 defense card. So there's the psychological aspect of that too. So you're always going to sneak in some damage unless the opponent wants to lose out on potential blocking value. Unless the Ranger, of course. Ranger's cards all block for 2, so they're okay with this.
Feels bad.
That's true.
Feels so bad.
And that's the upside. Is we don't lose value.
Yep.
Okay, so Dimensional Crossroads, Dimensional Crossroads. You know what it is. Great
the 2
card.
X's bother me.
Yeah, the 2 X's bother me just because I never know how to say it, and it's very clearly like it feels so Yu-Gi-Oh, right? This is something that I expect to see on a Yu-Gi-Oh card with a billion lines of text, which it kind of is. It has like 7 lines of text, which is pretty big. It's really nice. It's constantly pinging you, and the downside is relevant enough that you never feel like, or you always feel like you're moments away from losing it if you have a bad turn. So I do like the card design-wise. I just wish it had a little bit less lines of text. I don't know.
I mean, you can't go any less for the effect that it has. So
no, you definitely can't go any less unless you want to make it stronger. But yeah, it's just it feels like a great card, and I like the unique gameplay it brings to Chain. But it feels a little clunky to read. That's the only thing. That's my only complaint about it. Great art though.
Okay.
Also, Lava?
No, that's all. Go to Invert Existence. Unless you had something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say no. I think it's a good card. I think, look, I've talked about this before, but I feel like Flesh and Blood is at its best when there aren't cards that are permanents. At least this card is relatively close to not being a permanent, so it's kind of an upside you have to juggle. So I don't have as much problem with it as other ones. And it's good. Like, I'm sure it's quite strong.
Yeah, and the big thing too is that wanting to play this means you can't play the legendary Carrion Husk. So I do like that aspect of it, where you have 2 individually powerful cards, but they are anti-synergistic.
Okay.
So you have to there's a meaningful choice in running both.
Yes, yeah, that I totally agree with. Right, I mean, you could probably still play Carrion Husk, but the moment you actually block with the Husk, then Dimensional Crossroads does nothing from then on.
Yeah.
Or it's only in play for a turn. So that is a nice choice.
Okay, and then let's go to Invert Existence. So I guess I'll be talking mostly about Chain because I do like Chain. Chain's gameplay at least. Invert Existence is a lot less exciting when you play it than as it reads. Mostly because it's very rare, especially in the current meta, to get off that 2 arcane damage. And for the most part, it sits there, it eats up a resource because otherwise you're gonna lose life for it. And you never feel super good about playing it unless you're a super grindy deck. But if they're a super grindy deck, they're never gonna reach that point anyway because you either burn out and die or they win before that happens.
Yeah, I think this card is mostly to aid the playing of Eclipse easier. So
Oh, true.
yeah, but if you do get it off, getting that 2 or that 1 extra arcane damage is nice because it does activate a lot of the stuff that Chain has with like piercing shadow
2 extra
Vice.
arcane damage.
Well, I mean,
it's 1 in function, but yeah, it's 2
yeah.
extra.
I'm assuming they're gonna block the 1 arcane, but yeah, yeah,
True.
yeah. Hitting that 2 breakpoint for the arcane playing as Chain is very nice.
Definitely. Okay.
My only comment is it's got fantastic art.
So,
yeah.
okay, so this is one thing. This is one thing I want to challenge you on. I'm not a fan of this art, mostly because I'm not sure what exactly this figure is doing. I see some sort of like dragon wing like figure, and
He's inverting existence.
I see
It's in the
some sort
title.
of like explosion of color, but unlike Shadowverse or unlike Dimensional Crossroads, this doesn't scream, "Wow, this guy it means business," or "This is ominous to me." This is a attack. And I guess it's fine for an attack. It just doesn't like excite me the way
Sure.
Dimensional Crossroads does.
Sure, I dig it. Look, I like to think of it as like he's inverting the shadow into light. Maybe it's kind of a
True.
play on the title, right? That's
True.
what I'm thinking. But I don't know. It's just the color scheme I quite like.
Yeah,
This
it does have a nice color scheme.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is the quality of my armchair commentary. It's just, oh no, it's nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Rares then. Unhallowed Rites. It's all right. It's a 4 attack.
Sorry, it's just the dramatic pause of it's all right.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, like it's good because you get to reuse stuff that you're probably gonna banish later. But and something that you want to play in the mid game, but it's never like it's a card without go again, and Chain desperately needs cards with go again. So playing this instead of playing like Piercing Shadow Vice or some other card to finish off a turn never feels as impactful as just playing one of those high damage cards or playing one of those cards that will deal more damage than this card does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never really excited by cards that go back on the bottom of your deck. I think that most of the time it's a pretty irrelevant ability, honestly. Like it's true that in some matchups it will matter more than others, but yeah, it's I read it and I'm like, oh boy. Why am I excited to play a 1-for-4 generic attack? Like
for the most part, this is going to be banishing, or this is going to be recycling Seeds of Agony, which does play into Chain being able to finish off a game later on. And I'll go into more into that once we get there. But for the most part, it's just okay. It's nice. It exists.
Yeah. Also, like the restriction that you have is kind of difficult if you don't have anything to play or to activate it, and then it's just probably going to recycle whatever you play. So it's
true.
Whatever.
Which makes blocking a little bit harder as Chain because you have to figure out what if I banish, am I going to be able to play to avoid losing the life? Because that's part of how Dimensional Crossroads will work, and because both of them will function off of having a decent amount of attack actions and non-attack actions, they want to be in the same deck. So all of these restrictions that say if you've played a non-attack action, you can play it from Banish Zone, they're all a liability to make sure that when you block, you have to block correctly and anticipate what you're going to exile.
All right, go to the next card.
Onto another Dimension XXXL card.
Yeah. I don't think this card is playable. Do you have any other thoughts, guys?
Pass.
Oh.
All right, going ahead.
Okay, sounds good. It's just boring. CP Shadows. I also don't think this card is playable.
Having a go again is nice. It's a good budget option, honestly, but
it's a great budget option, but the 3 cost is so prohibitive.
Yeah, 3 cost is huge.
Yeah. And if you want to do the non-red ones, you're running into the liability of I exiled a lot of 2-cost attacks, which Chain has a lot of. So I can't actually get the benefit from Seeping Shadows.
Next.
All right. Bounty and Demagon, go ahead.
Yep, we're in the commons now. That was a very quick rare section. I like this card. It's a 0-cost card, so you are always able to play it in the early game if you're blocking with 4 cards. So that's nice. Obviously, it doesn't have go again, so that's a bit of a downside. But as a free attack that you can play from Banish, it definitely feels good.
I mean, it's just a free 4 damage, right? Generally speaking.
Yeah, you have to play the non-attack action, so you hope you banish the Seeds of Agony, or you have some sort of a thing in hand. But
yeah,
it's one of those cards where it's okay to have it sit around in your banish zone and lose with life or 2 from it if you don't have dimensional crosswords out, just because it's just like it's a cheap attack that can fit into any nice turn later.
Yeah, it's fine. Like it's perfectly acceptable. It's just that kind of card, right? Where it's just it's fine. It probably fills a niche where it needs to, but that's all that really needs to be said about it.
Yeah, exactly. Piercing Shadow Vice. So a lot of people like this card. I'm not a big fan of this card, just because the arcane damage is surprisingly hard to turn on. Mostly because you're using like your first. You have to go basically Vex and Malice into Piercing Shadow Vice or some other 2 damage arcane thing, because it's very easy to telegraph since it sits in your banish zone. So your opponent can just spend their arcane barrier or spend their spell void on the arcane damage you try to deal, and that will prevent essentially 3 damage, 2 from this and then 1 from the arcane damage.
Yeah, look, it's a pretty expensive to attack if it's not, right? Like it's just 2 for 4.
Exactly. So it never feels great to play, and on the turns, especially late in the game where you exile like 3 or 4 different attacks, this is always on your like lowest priority level because it just doesn't threaten enough damage. Okay, and then we'll go to Riftbind. Oliver likes this art. I'm actually not super big on it. Why do you like the art, Oliver?
It just looks cool. I don't know.
It's not appealing to you.
It pleases me. It pleases me in some way. Not in. No, okay, never mind. I was gonna say like I know what you're probably thinking of, but
PG-13 here. But okay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so
in a spiritual way.
Yeah.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's fine. I mean, it's nice if you go like Seeds of Agony into Riftbind, and you notice that we were mentioning Seeds of Agony a lot because that's pretty much the best card the chain has right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it coming up soon.
I do like that it's 1 cost, so it can function off of more of his non-attack actions that care about cost. And usually you can get this to hit for 4 plus whatever, non-attack action bonus you added to it. So it's never bad. It's basically at worst a ghostly visit for the most part.
Yeah, I think it's a good card. I mean, it doesn't have an upper limit, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's the potential that this could be, 6 or something like that if you manage to play like 3 Seeds of Agony in a turn or something like that. So no, that's nice on a 1 attack card.
Yeah.
On a 1 cost card, not 1 attack. Yeah, no, it's good. Good card. Okay. Good art too. Speaks to me spiritually.
Oh yeah, me too. All right, go to Rifted Torment.
Let's go to Rifted Torment. Yeah. So once again, this is probably my least favorite art, just because it looks kind of creepy. I like the card. It's a great card because it forces the opponent, especially the red ones, it forces the opponent to divide up their defenses. And on a turn where you're not dealing arcane damage, it does get a lot of mileage out of it. So say you hit like Banish Rifted Torment and Rift to Reality, they have to spend 2 cards or at least 1 card to prevent the Rifted Torment hit in order to not eat dirt on Rift to Reality. So it's good as a opener. I'm less excited about it in other situations where you exile it and 2 other cards. But yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's good.
I'll agree that this art does not speak to me on a spiritual level. It's not that it's bad art, to clarify. Like, I mean, as far as the actual quality of the picture, it's quite high quality, but it's just, it's not very appealing art.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the card seems fine. I mean, my first thought is the card doesn't seem very strong, but I don't have as much context for it.
So I will say that this is amazing with Seeds of Agony. On a turn where you exile like Seeds of Agony, Rifted Torment, and some other card, this is amazing. So before we get to Seeds of Agony, let's talk about another card that's really good with Seeds of Agony, Rift to Reality. This is really important for Chain because it allows him to have the 3rd strike without expending his other resources. But again, it's easy to telegraph. So you almost want to have this in your hand so that the opponent doesn't isn't able to play around it.
I was gonna say I always forget you could actually play cards from Chain's hand.
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
thought his hands were just resources.
Yeah, on the turns where you somehow have 4 cards in hand, this is amazing. Especially if you like banish Shadow of Ursa, right? You lead off with a chain into Rift Tournament. Then you go, they take the 1 arcane because they don't see any other arcane sources. So it's like, might as well block where I can and maximize my value. And then you go Shadow of Ursa, banish Rift Reality, and then a Galaxy Black or something. And then it's an amazing turn. You've dealt like 16 damage, and it feels good. But making it feel good is more hoops than you have to jump through usually. So it's kind of difficult.
I'm waiting until they release the Doctor Doom Runeblade hero.
Oh yeah.
On a side note.
He looks cool. He has a different scythe than the Dread Scythe, so.
Look, he does look cool. It just the first thing I think when I look at him is that's Doctor Doom.
Yeah. Okay, so finally, Seeds of Agony. The last card in Chain's pool, but also the best card, and we're just running out of time here, so we'll wrap it up here.
Go ahead.
So Seeds of Agony, I was really hopeful for it. So my initial evaluation of the card during spoiler season was this card's kind of weak because it only does 1 card for 1 damage, essentially, and it doesn't even add go again. So it's like whatever. My initial impression on pre-release was this card's amazing because it just enables so much stuff. And my impression later is this card is still amazing, but it's not as amazing as originally thought because it's so easy to block later on.
Yeah, and yeah, it's probably because of the errata, right? Where
the errata where it's a separate source instead of adding to the source of the main attack. That really took the wind out of its sails. So you can't guarantee arcane damage with it and say like Rifting Torment or an extra like Arcanic Crackle.
Yeah, I still think you run 6/9 of them, depending on blitz.
Yeah, I do think you still run them. I just not as super happy with them as I originally thought.
At least, but it still synergizes with a lot of cards. So it synergizes with like meet and greets, Rift from Reality, Rip Through Reality, and then Rift Binds. Rift Binds are pretty big.
Yeah. The main thing is that Chain telegraphs a lot of everything he banishes is like super telegraphed. So when you do banish something with or do banish the Seeds of Agony, it might be better just to have the Rift Reality or Piercing Shadow Vice in hand to surprise the opponent that they take the damage. Take the arcane damage instead of where they can clearly see, okay, if I don't block the arcane damage, I'm gonna take an extra 3 damage. So it's better for me to block this.
Yep, that's where the meet and greets come in, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I think that will pretty much wrap up.
We still have
wrap that up now.
The token. I guess you want to talk about it, but
Soul Shackle.
Yeah.
Soul Shackle.
I like the stairs.
Good art.
Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah. And
cool sword.
I like the funny thing is right? You can respond to this, and each one is an individual trigger. So.
Oh, true.
In case you.
I don't know why you would, but you can do that definitely.
You can be like, I want a Guardian this turn, Arclight Sentinel or whatever, and be like,
oh.
I want to wait to see how much they banished before I play or something. I don't know.
True.
Yeah, it's
But you basically do that until like 1 you wait until 1 after the number of Soul Shackles they have, and if they have like a Seeds of Agony or something, they're probably gonna do that first, right? So they're just gonna go Seeds of Agony, and that's when you Arclight Sentinel.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just funny if you were ever thinking about it.
Yeah, true.
So the next card, Carrion Husk. Legendary Shadow Equipment chest, blocks for 6, Blood Debt. What do you think?
My initial thought was this is great in Levia, and thematically it works better in Levia because I can't imagine Chain equipping a Carrion Husk and still being able to make it's like he's just like hiding inside this giant body and wow, defense for 6 once, and he's like, okay, cool, time to come out. I think I don't like it in Chain, even though I know it's good in Chain, because it's anti-synergistic with the card I want to play, which is Dimensional Crossroads.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it's still a great card. I think it's good in both Blitz and CC. Yeah. And I think that no matter what, you still want to have this in your in your kind of repertoire and the equipment that you take with your deck. Even though in some cases you would rather have the common version of the card.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I think this is still pretty like a good choice to have. I think it shines more on Blitz, where you can just like switch tempo just like that, just by blocking.
Yeah, you eat a CNC and you're like, okay, cool, my turn now.
But for Classic Constructed, I think it's a little bit less powerful because there's so much life you can work with. Yeah, 6 isn't as much, but it's still a good card. I think I would still use it both for Levia and Chain, but we aren't professionals, so what do we know?
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's go to Ebb and Fold, which is surprisingly well used for common, just because both Chain and Levia have that necessity to banish things. With Chain is obviously more offensive. You banish stuff offensively. With Levia, it's more about a get out of jail free card. But I do like the card. I think it's very well designed. There's nothing I can say that's bad about this card. The art's amazing.
And Cold Foil too.
Cold Foil looks great. Spell Void 2 is actually relevant sometimes.
Yeah.
And it brings usability to a keyword and mechanic that you otherwise would not necessarily see. Obviously, in cases where you're against like Chain or not Chain, sorry, a Viserai or Kano, you want to have the Arcane Barrier. But this is still a reasonable card, and I'm glad it's seeing a lot of use.
Actually, I think it's still pretty good in Kano because most of the time you don't. If you have like Arcane Barrier 4, you can't really pitch into that 4 as well as easily. But if you have Arcane Barrier 3 and then Spell Void, you can hit a 5 arcane damage attack pretty easily.
Yeah, so, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, there's arguments for both. It depends if you want to run like Snapdragons as Chain. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It's good equipment, just like the Halo. I think Halo is also equally as good.
Halo is good. Ebb and Fold is good. I like the art on Ebb and Fold better because it's one thing that I don't like about a lot of the weapons specifically, but also some of the equipment is that they are very visually mundane. Like, for example, the difference between Refraction Bolters and Valiant Dynamo is just the surrounding color scheme, essentially. Like, if you put the two concept art of the two boots side by side, I could not tell you which one is which. Whereas with Ebb and Fold, it's a very Whereas with Ebb and Fold, it's very unique, right? It's very unique. It grabs your eye.
Yeah. Okay.
It's got this nice blue and purple color scheme that is shared by Shadow, but more importantly, it's bright and visually eye grabbing.
Right. Yeah, just trying to make a joke there, but okay. Yeah, I like purple, so I like this card. All right.
Doomsday and Eclipse. I guess we can talk about these both in one breath. Obviously, people are valuing Eclipse more than Doomsday, mostly because Chain can probably use Ursa better than Levia can because she doesn't have as much go again. I think both of these are very interesting payoffs for Legendary. I almost would like this to have been a short printed Majestic in terms of rarity because I don't think they're that good. But at the same time, because they're not that good, I think it's totally fine at Legendary. They're actually the least offensive Legendaries they printed.
Yeah, they're not like auto includes. They're not necessary for the deck to actually perform.
Yeah, I do like that it opens up a new build for specifically Eclipse, not so much Doomsday, because Doomsday is more just like you throw it in if you have it, right?
Yeah. The weird thing about these is that why aren't they in the respective classes, right? Isn't that kind of weird to you?
Somebody brought this up the other day, and I think it makes some sense. Do you really want Brute to be able to tutor Doomsday, or Chain to be able to tutor Eclipse? Right now, they have no tutors for Shadow cards, but they do have tutors for Runeblade and Brute cards.
Do they really?
Yeah, they have a what's it called? Sand Sketch Plan for
Sand Sketch Plan. That's right. Okay.
Brute cards and Become the Arknight for, or actually no, Become the Arknight can't tutor. You're right. I think it's more about future proofing, right? You don't want to have the ability to like instantly get this on the band.
Okay. My thought process was there might be some class changes coming up, but
that's also true. Yes. Yeah. It could be. I don't see how they can reasonably class change Levia or Chain thematically. But hey, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, they did this for both of the legendaries that they have, or like not legendary rarity, but legendary specialization cards.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was curious, but yeah, your can't tutor makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm also on the same page with you with Eclipse being a little bit better. I
Mhm.
found Blasmafet a little bit underwhelming.
I think design-wise, they're both underwhelming, and I guess we'll get to this when we get to the demons. They're both underwhelming because I feel like they should have been differentiated more. I actually think that when spoiler season was happening, people were speculating that Blasphemous and Ursur would be replacing Levy and Chain as your hero card, which I thought would be an amazing idea and very thematic. I'm a little disappointed it didn't turn out that way.
That'd be a lot of balancing.
There'll be a lot of balancing issues, but at the same time, these ones, because they're so easily dealt with, they almost just feel like random minions that show up instead of like this amazing demon guy that basically ends the game for you.
Yeah, but do you want that in Fab? Like, do you want planeswalkers to actually be a thing and like
Well,
seal the game
they
for
wouldn't be
you?
planeswalkers essentially. Or if they were replacing heroes, right? They wouldn't be planeswalkers. They'd be
Oh,
just
okay, yeah,
transformative.
yeah. I
If they're
mean,
actually allies that you needed to deal with, I don't think I'd like that. But at the same time, my initial thoughts were that it would be a lot harder to summon them, especially Levias. So the payoff should be better. Whereas with Doomsday especially, there's not much risk to it, so you shouldn't get too much of a reward for it, right?
right, okay. Um, yeah, there were some hero changing stuff for Hearthstone, but uh, they were kind of underwhelming in my opinion. I quit. I
Yeah.
quit soon after that. All right. Got anything else to say?
No, that's about it. Let's move
Okay.
on to Mutated Mass.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
this is, I think, our first card that has a variable defense value, which is really weird because it doesn't actually matter 90% of the time, or I'd say 99% of the time. I think the only time you really want to be doing this in Levia or Chain is when you're banishing a card from your hand to use Ibnfold or playing Guardian of the Shadow Realm, right?
yeah.
But at the same time, if you're playing Guardian of the Shadow Realm, this only blocks for 2, and unless you pitch 2, then you're taking your whole turn off to block for 10, which is
Yeah.
nothing. So I don't know. It doesn't feel super. The second part of the ability, which is to change the variable toughness, doesn't feel super interesting. It feels like it might as well just be a no block, and it'll just be the same card as 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Offensively, I think it's very reasonable. Usually it's a 4 attack for 1 cost, which is basically a ghostly visit.
Yeah.
Occasionally it's better than that, which is great when it happens.
Because you can pitch
So
it
I do
for
think
3.
it's very worthy of being majestic.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too sold on this one. Like you're saying, there is like an argument to like the hoops that you have to get through in order for it to actually be very powerful is very, what is it? There's a lot of obstacles, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the same. It's the same issue with cards like Maximum Velocity, though, right? Where you have a card that's difficult to make work, but when you do, it's great. Um, this is a little easier than Maximum Velocity, which is why I suspect it's a blue instead of a red. In terms of being able to just like pitch it and go crazy.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. I think it's a fine design. I would prefer this over Majestics like Shadow Puppetry, which are basically just must runs.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll get to that later, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Next card.
Guardian of the Shadow Realm. I don't have too much to say about this other than it's kind of really awkward to play.
Yeah, I thought this thing was pretty good until I read action for
With
the
no go again.
yeah, right. I thought that was hilarious. I was like, oh yeah, I opened this in pre-release. And I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm gonna run this, and then wait a second, action. What is this? I mean, I was
Yeah,
running
it
chain,
takes everyone
but
out of the sales.
yeah,
It also pitches for red, which is super underwhelming
yep,
in a um especially when it costs 2. So you want to run this with non-reds that you're presumably pitching to take your turn.
yeah,
I don't think any deck is currently really running this right now, which says a lot about it.
But meanwhile, Soul Shield, the light version,
Yeah,
so much
Soul
better.
Shield is it's very good.
Yeah.
Mostly
Alright.
because the effect that it gives is free, right? This actually costs you resources and like basically your entire turn.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep. Yeah.
I can see a turtle Levia or like a turtle chain, but I don't know why you want to play turtle if you're playing Levia or chain.
Yeah. Right. If you
So
want to play
maybe
turtle,
maybe whatever hero they release in next set or the set after that will make better use of it.
yeah, possibly. All right. Shadow Ninja have more defense reactions.
Oh yeah.
No.
I don't think Shadow Ninja's interested or would be interested in having a two cost defense reaction though when it has Flick Flag.
Well, I mean, I run unmovables, right? So,
True.
but blocking for 6 isn't great right now because of how many heralds are out there with 7 power. Yeah. That's fine. All right. Next card, Shadow Puppetry.
You basically run this in every deck that can, right? So,
Yeah.
it's good. It's a 0 cost, gives something go again, and +1, which is good for breakpoints. So, I mean, it's just a card that you want to run in every deck, and I'm glad there's only there's only one color of them. But I'm also not glad that they're putting basically must-run cards and Majestic.
Yeah. And there's another thing to note is that it affects any attack action, so you can get that CNC.
Yeah.
Everyone can be Ira now.
Yeah, it affects CNC, which CNC 7 power go again, just makes it better.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of cards that just get way better with this. Like even stuff like just a regular Levia like hit that's for 6.
Mm-hmm.
7 makes it awkward to block, gets in for a little bit of shit damage, and you also get a nice banish effect if you need it.
Yeah. Or E Strike for 8, go again. What about that?
Oh yeah, that's rough.
I've had that happen against me.
Yeah. You strike for 8, go again. Wow. And then you have a blue left in hand, so you just pitch a chain and do 2 more attacks. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Big damage, baby.
Yeah.
All right. So it's good. We like it.
Yeah.
Past. All right. Next one.
Tome of Torment. It exists, I guess. I don't see any deck that wants it right now. Maybe Chain, but it seems to be just a rarity filler, I guess.
Yeah. There was a guy I played against. He was playing Tome of Torment in Chain, and he basically did it to draw a card, cycle it out, and then get like a really big Riftbind. But that means you only get 1 attack off of the Soul Shackle instead of 2 attacks. So
you have to go spend one of your precious go agains on Torment.
Yeah, so it's all right. Maybe we'll see something with it later. And maybe like a Shadow Wizard might be able to might like it. But we'll see. So far, underwhelming. Yep.
Yeah.
For a Majestic, that is too. Okay.
I mean, that's fine, but yeah, it just doesn't do much, and it's not very exciting to read either. So
yeah. All right. Next card, going to the rares for Consuming Aftermath.
Yeah. It's really expensive. That's my first thought about it. 3 for 6 is not really particularly interesting. Basically just means you're taking your entire 2 cards, one of your precious blues to attack with this.
And
6
dominate isn't even that scary.
Yeah, the dominate doesn't even that relevant. Like you can use this in Chain just to like banish something from your hand, but at the same time, I'd rather just play like Shadowverse or some other banish from hand card instead of this. This is like the budget version of like Art of War or something.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, if it gave itself go again, that'd be good, maybe.
Yeah.
But dominate. I mean, you can use that as a finisher, but you got to get there first.
Yeah.
And you won't get there with this card.
No, not at all.
All right, let's go into the what is it? The specializations, legendary specializations at rare.
Yep.
Soul Harvest. 6 cost for 6 power. But
I don't like this card as much as other people do. It's a great card just to like conserve resources and make a meaty attack, but it's just so awkward to it's so awkward to play. And it's there because it's a blue, right? You play it because it's a blue with 6 power. But I'm never like super happy to pull it off unless I'm playing against Bolton that has like 8 things charged.
Okay, I'm on the opposite spectrum of you. You would play this at the end of the game when you have only blues left. Since Levia has a lot of reds and yellows, it's very hard to pull this off in the middle of the game, especially when you aren't like stacking your graveyard in anticipation for it. But like the Levia games that I've played, once you get down to your blues, you will have like 12 or something. This isn't constructed. You'll have like 12 or something in your graveyard, and you'll be able to pull this off pretty safely. So, I think it's just a fine card. If you discard it, it's fine. If you are able to play it, it's fine, and it blocks for 3, which is nice. So, yeah, I think it's just a good card overall. Not amazing, but not terrible. All right, next one, Soul Reaping.
Yeah, Soul Reaping. I love this card. You never play it for its 6 cost. The 6 cost is just there just to prevent you from playing it the wrong way.
Yeah.
You basically just use this as a way to generate resources from your hand, and as a way to either extend or begin a combo. 6 attack for essentially -1 at least is great, especially when you're trying to conserve resources for more expensive attacks. In builds where Chain has using more 0s and 1s, banishing 2 cards from your hand to fuel your entire turn is a great feeling, right? It allows you just to banish 2 random cards, go Seeds of Agony, Bounding Demigod, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
You
those
feel
cost
good
0,
about
dude.
yourself.
You don't even need those resources.
Yeah, exactly. And you use like the 2 resources for like, I don't know, a Rune Chanter or something.
Or
just
Nebula Blade. Yeah.
Nebula Blade hit, who knows?
Yeah, that's fine. One thing to note is it has to attack when it's attacking a hero with 1 or more cards in their soul. It has go again, but if they are able to spend their soul in some way, then it loses the go again. So.
Yeah, so don't do this against a Prism with one card in soul.
Yeah.
But a Prism with 2 cards in soul, or like Bolton in general, is just wrecked by this.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Next card. Unless you have something else.
No, that's it. Let's go for Hell from Beyond.
Yep. Pretty standard pump. Also, it's a little overcosted, but +3, you can play it for your
so basically every card that can be played from Banish costs an extra 1 over its normal cost, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, it would usually like cost 1, but this is costing 2.
Yeah.
It's not super exciting. It's there. It's good in Chain. It's maybe okay in Levia if you just want to have a way to pump stuff, but usually you don't. You want the resources.
So in my tests with Levia, this actually is pretty decent because you can pump from your exile, and then it doesn't use any cards from your graveyard. So it's if you have stuff floating, and it's something that you can pay into pretty easily, and it will conserve your graveyard. Like other than like Unworldly Bellow, unlike Unworldly Bellow, where it exiles your graveyard, right? So it's good for conserving your graveyard, and it's just a nice to have it around, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Okay, Ghostly Visit, or do you want to talk about the colors at all? I'd say only run reds. The red one's the only one worth running.
Not much to talk about really. It's just they're just there as the extra versions. There's not really too much to say other than you run it if you need it, but usually you don't.
Yep. Okay. How about Ghostly Visit?
It's great. Not great because it's like amazing when you play it, but it's just always solid, right? 1 for 4 isn't really particularly interesting, but giving Levia something extra to do if she has go again for 1 cost, so she can do a 2 cost hit and 1 cost hit. That's good. Chain obviously is just extra blood debt for filler to banish stuff from. So yeah, it's never bad. It's never great. It's just there.
Oh, didn't you just say it was great though? Yeah, I
I mean,
think
it's great
fine.
in the fact that it's flexible, right? It's always solid.
Yeah,
but it's never like amazing. I love this card.
Yeah, if you're playing Chain, you might as well just run Unhallowed Rites if you are playing this one.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a restriction for Unhallowed Rites or the condition where to play it from Banish, but yeah, I don't see any reason to run this unless you have nothing in your card pool that you can run. All right. Lunartide Plunderer.
Limited powerhouse. I'm never sad to see it limited. Otherwise, it's mostly just there to give new players a way to break Prism's illusions in Chain.
Yep.
And that's about it.
Yeah. It also notes that it banishes itself when it hits,
Yeah.
so it helps.
So it's good in
Levia,
Levia if it hits,
yeah.
but like you never want to rely on something hitting in Levia,
Yeah.
right? When it can just block it.
Yep.
Especially when the choice between blocking it means you take 11. So the opponent's gonna be like, oh, okay, I just block it and you take 11. That's fine.
Yep. Yeah. This card is just okay overall. Nothing amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Void Wraith.
Less good than the Ghostly Visit just because it costs 2 and is the majority of a pitch instead of the minority of a blue pitch. And just offers a +1 bonus. It's there. It exists.
Yeah.
That's about it.
It's not. Yeah. If it was 6 power, it'd be great in Levia, but no. Unfortunately, no. Yeah. That's fine. Okay. Going on. Spew Shadow.
Never good. I feel like Fab is one of those games where getting something back from your graveyard is only really good if you're getting it for mostly free. While this takes a lot of tempo out of you and doesn't actually like do you any good, right?
Yeah.
For the most part,
it's from Bannerstone, by the way, not graveyard.
yeah, it's from Bannerstone, so it's like you can maybe play like I don't know just a random 2-cost attack from Bannerstone, but I can't think of anything that you would want to play more than once over or significantly over something in your hand by paying 2 more for it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you want a Command and Conquer back, and if it attacks a light hero, it gains +2. But like, yeah, I think it is way too overcosted for the effect.
I'm not sure if I would pay 4 mana, 4 resources for a Command and Conquer though. That's the thing.
Yeah, maybe it's good and limited. I don't know.
It's all right and limited. It's just there. I think it's just great art though.
Yeah.
Great art. I will say that.
Yeah, there's a playmat for it. You want to go?
Yeah, I know, right?
Go win one.
I think it's one of the better compositions just because of how well it blends into the border.
Yeah, a little bit. All right. Next one.
Blood Tribute. I like the art. I also like the other art that is printed in Unlimited. So there's an alternate art version. This version of Blood Tribute is only available in first edition. Otherwise, there's no difference, and otherwise, it's a bad card.
Yeah.
But that's the only notable thing I have to say about it.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything, in my opinion.
Yeah. Looks great though.
Yeah, I like this art way better than the unlimited art. But all right, that's just opinion. Okay.
Yeah, it's never bad.
Yeah.
Neither is bad.
All right.
And lastly, Eclipse Existence.
I got nothing on this one. It fills my deck when I need it. It's finding chain.
It's one of those just you run it because you need to run it. You're never really happy for it. Occasionally, it does work by banishing or by doing some extra damage to your opponent, but this is just 3 resources, and that's about it for the most part.
Yeah.
Even Unlimited, I never really want to run this.
Yeah, I don't think I did either.
Which is kind of sad because it's a nice mirrored pair with Ray of Hope, and the art's not the worst, and you get the promos for it, so you can run it. So actually, I want to talk about the limited philosophy behind Eclipse Existence and Ray of Hope as the pre-release promos.
Sure, go ahead.
Specifically in comparison with Magic. So one of the issues, especially around the 2011 to 2013 era of Magic, or actually almost the 2015 era of Magic, was that they gave you these promos that you could play during a pre-release, and usually they'd be very good. So if you got a promo, you would almost certainly run it. Or there were always specific promos, right? So it homogenized the sealed decks, and even when they did 5 different promos, you could choose your guild and stuff. Most people just gravitated to the one with the best guaranteed card.
Okay.
So they can just run that one and be guaranteed like a reasonable sealed deck. With LSS's approach, the promos are basically unplayable. They're the 23rd card at best. So I wonder if that's an intentional decision on their part, where you don't want people to be forced into a certain deck, and you don't want people to go up against the same card over and over again.
True. Okay.
Yeah, interesting note.
I don't play limited that often, so I have no opinion. But I'll just nod and shake my head.
Yeah, sounds good.
Or, yeah, nod and shake my head.
Yeah.
All right. Going to demons.
Yeah.
Starting with
First off, Plasmet, great art. Um, obviously, the attack is fine if you are blocking for most of the turn and you need a way to banish things. Otherwise, it's a 6 health meat shield. That's about it. I'm a little sad you can't defend allies, but I understand why they did it.
yeah. I don't see this being this demon is very underwhelming in Levia, mostly because you need attack actions to or you need action points to attack multiple times, and this thing is only attacking for 6, while your
Yeah.
other attacks are attacking for like 14, maybe 16. I don't know, depending on what you buff,
It
how
feels
you buff it.
underwhelming that your super cool demon buddy is attacking for less than you on
Yeah.
average.
Yep. At least it does let you choose and banish a card, but it's like
Yeah. I feel like at that point of the game, the only time you really need it is if they ignored Blasphemous and just attacked you instead because you're almost dead.
yeah, that's actually what happened between you and me.
Yeah.
You're at 1. I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna attack face. What
Yep.
can you do?
And I was like, okay, cool. I can't block this. I guess I lose.
I mean, you did block it, but then you died to blood debt because you have nothing to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah, this thing is very underwhelming in my opinion. But maybe we'll find some use. Maybe someone's gonna do some weird Levia build where they just turbo this out and then just play
I think
defense.
I think it's actually really good in the Hexacore build
Mhm.
because it basically, instead of using Hexacore, which you need 2 resources on, you just spend your extra action point that you generate for a Blasphemous hit, which is less resources, so you can use one more card when defending.
Maybe. Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's like the theme here. Everything's okay.
hmm
All right, going
Which is
on.
good actually. It's good because there's nothing that's super broken or super bad.
Yep. How about Urser? Still okay.
I think that the like in terms of technical skill and the art, I think Blasphemous better, but I do like the design of Ursa better just because it's less generic Slaaneshi flesh tentacle monster and more like a cosmos eldritch being. Um, Similar, but unfortunately, there's not too much differentiating them mechanically, other than the fact that Ursa can get Gogan if it's attacking Prism or Bolton.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a soul reaping on a stick, which is a very fun way to think about the card.
Yeah, yeah, but it doesn't really do anything, or I guess it does do something if you are going off super big, but
It's going off super big, and I think by the time you usually play it,
you're probably winning.
you're running out of steam. So
But you're
it's good
probably
to
winning at
have.
that point too, right?
Yeah, also because you're probably winning at that point. So it's just the extra push that you need to get through some damage, right?
Yeah, I think it's fine. But yeah, as we said before, the legendaries don't define the deck. The legendaries that play these cards at least. So
Yeah, they're not here. They're not. You must play this, which is good.
Yep.
And then the decks that do play it can probably use it to their best effect anyway. So
all right, I got nothing else. You want to go into the
sounds
brute
good.
cards?
Let's move on to Ravenous Meat Axe and Brood cards.
Mm-hmm. I can start with this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Compared to Romping Club, this one eats through your deck. So in a deck or in a match where you are expecting to go through fatigue, this will be less good. Also, if you whiff, it's only hitting for 3, so it's not as good as Romping Club where it's always swinging for at least 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in practice, it turns out to be worse than a Romping Club for most cases. But I like it as an alternative just for because the initial concern with Levy is filling up graveyard, which is necessary in some matchups where you can't actually defend for get stuff in your graveyard, like especially.
Like Kano.
Yeah, but otherwise, it's mostly just a side worst grade. If Romping Club is a B plus, this is probably a B minus.
Yeah. What was I gonna say?
Sorry, did my talk of grades make you lose your train of thought?
Yeah, like flashbacks to school and everything.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, you have like the Vietnam veteran meme.
Yeah.
It's fine.
There's not much to say about it. It does its job well as a basic attack. that also plays into Levy's strategy while also not being completely bad for Brute. In the situations where you're doing something as Reiner with just like a random like attack and then want to intimidate again for some reason, I can see Ravenous Meat being a choice, but I feel like Romping Club is usually going to be a win out in most cases.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can do like barraging, beatdown, barraging, beatdown, barraging, beatdown, and then hopefully draw, discard something for that
Yeah.
fourth one, and then intimidate.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be like
yeah,
a super
dream.
rare thing, right? So
Well, not too rare when you run 9 of them.
true.
Okay, so if you do run this in Levia as like your main build, I feel like it's not too great because if you build Levia correctly, you shouldn't have any trouble filling up your graveyard.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is just like a crutch for
Mhm.
deck builders. Not saying anyone's bad who uses it, just
Yeah, but it's
use it as like a learning tool.
mhm,
Yep.
exactly.
All right, going on.
Okay, tear limb from limb. First off, a lot of the brute names are very nice and visceral and are fun to say. I've mentioned this before with convulsions from the bellows of hell, but tear limb from limb is also pretty good. Unfortunately, despite what the name implies, you are not actually tearing limb from limb. You are getting ready to tear limb from limb. Uh, it's a very high roll card, uh, and when it does work, it feels good, but I'm not convinced it's better than just another attack.
Okay. Here's my argument. Have you ever played KO?
No, I have not.
Okay, so KO, if you roll successfully 5 or 6, it doubles the attack's base power, which means
Okay.
that tear limb from limb doubles it again.
Okay, so it's times 4. Yeah, that I can see that. I can see that.
So
So you have a
certain
random
applications
like
of this card,
24 damage attack.
yeah, certain application of this card, very good. Also, as noting that it's the attack space power, not the discarded attack space power. We got that wrong in a couple of videos, so
Yeah. So you can double that Deadwood Rumbler or whatever meaty attack you have.
yeah. So I think this card's very good. It's a little bit hard to pull off because it's not guaranteed, but
Yeah, but that's why it's blue, right? So it's not, you can just pitch it if you don't have anything. One concern is that the more of these high roll cards you add, since they're not attacks, you dilute the pool of getting stuff to trigger from your draw and discard random cards. So sometimes it's a liability where you flip it, where you put in your deck hoping to run it, and then it turns out when you hit it with your Ravenous Meat Axe or Pulping, you just draw this instead, and you're like, okay, day is sad.
Yep. And then speaking of pulping, that's the next card.
Yeah, Pulping. Great card. Actually, just amazing card. Obviously, you want to. This is one of those cards where you want to game the random discard to make sure that you are always at least like 90% chance of pulling it off. It's great in Levia because it gives go again and it discards and filters stuff. It's great in Reiner because it triggers his intimidate. I don't think there's anything I can say that's bad about it.
Yeah. The only bad thing about it is that you can get against those defensive builds that always have a defense reaction in their arsenal. This can get shut down really easily. But
True.
in most other matchups, this is just a great card.
Yeah, obviously not having it block is a liability.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's totally fine for how easy it is to use.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Smash with Big Tree.
Big smash.
It's there.
Yep. It's a fine. It attacks.
Yeah, you smash with a Big Tree and you deal 7 damage or 6 damage or 5 damage if you're playing limited, and you're okay.
Yeah. It attack, but it don't protect.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the biggest knock against it.
Yep. All right. Going to Runeblade stuff. So starting with Dreadscythe.
Yeah, let's go to my favorite class. Dreadscythe. I want to make this work. I don't think it's gonna work. I do like the fact that the arcane image happens immediately, and you can follow up with a with another card that triggers off of arcane damage.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're gonna block it, but if they're blocking it, they're either spending 2 cards to block this one card, or if they're just taking 3 or taking 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a nice way to kind of trip up your opponent if they don't know what Chain or Viserai is capable of. Especially if you have Go Again on it from like Malverian Skies or something. But it's just expensive, man. It's way too expensive.
Yeah, I wouldn't run this over Reaping Blade in Blitz. That
Yeah,
is.
Reaping Blade is probably better for when you need the prevention effect,
Yeah.
and Nebula Blade is probably better if you just need an attack that just hits for lots of damage.
Yep. Yeah, it's a fine Majestic in my opinion. It's pretty good limited at least.
Yeah.
So when
yeah.
you open it, you don't have to build around it, unlike Luminaris.
Exactly. Basically one guaranteed damage right there, right? So
Yep. Okay. Going on to Aether Ironweave.
yeah. A lot better than I expected on first glance. I originally expected this to be inferior in most aspects to Bloodsheath. At least for Viserai, obviously. Um, but in chain, it is a nice alternative to Carrion Husk, and it is fun to use. That's the main thing. It's fun to use.
Yeah, and it's like makes the opponent think a little. So when they're trying to block and they're trying to figure out whether or not you want to continue, it's like a will he, won't
Exactly.
he, or will they, won't they? Sorry.
Yeah. If
I'm
they have like
assuming they're
one card in
gendered.
hand and they have like Aether Iron Weave up, you have to take a gamble as to whether or not they're gonna hit you with like banishing or Galaxy Black or Nebula White,
Yeah.
or go for another attack. There's not too much difference because most of the chain's attacks just attack for the relatively same amount of damage. Um, but it's a nice way to extend your combo and to push on the turns that you really want to push.
Yeah. Yep. It also looks really good. It's got the purple.
Yeah, it's got the purple. So speaking of cards that look really good, let's go to Sonata Arcanics.
Okay. Yeah. What do you got?
So on the design aspect of it, mechanical design aspect, I'm not super happy of it being X+3, costing XX. I think that's really awkward to parse. But I do like how it plays, where you can use this as a 0-cost spell just to banish 3 cards and maybe do 1 arcane damage to your opponent. Or you can use this as a Bloodsheath Skeleton attack where you banish like 15 cards on 1 turn and hopefully kill them, or get enough advantage that you can just kill them the turn or the turn after that.
Yeah. At that point, though, do you really think they're gonna be dead at that point after 15 rune chance?
Good question. I mean, like if you have 15 rune chance, right? Then you're dealing like what, 18 damage to or 9 damage to the opponent, for arcane damage.
Oh, actually,
Which
it would only be X equals 8, right? So.
X equals 8. Yeah.
Oh, for this card at least. Yeah, but the 15 rune chance, 15 arcane. I don't know. It's I guess we have to try and build it, right?
It's how you build it, right? But it's a very good card for an alternate way to build chain. It kind of exists, or sorry, alternate way to build Viserai. It kind of existed already with OTK Viserai. I think this adds a new dimension to it that it sorely needs.
Yeah, but even after about however many months Monarch has been out, haven't seen OTK Viserai with this.
No,
if
I
anywhere.
haven't, but I just like that it exists, man.
Yeah.
The art's good, the effect is unique,
and
it's just one of those it's a very Johnny card, and to use Magic terminology, it gets your mind brewing where this card looks amazing if you can pull it off, and you want to try and make a deck that pulls it off.
Yeah, like
That's my 2 thoughts on it.
Yeah, I guess you can do like Sonar Arcanics and do 6 meet and greets or something.
Yeah, like 6 meet and greets is good, or just like the hard part about it is of course that to have enough attack action cards for this to be relevant, you actually have to be spending your root chance for a lot of the time. So it's a little it fights with itself a lot in terms of optimal build, but I think finding that optimal build is one of the better deck building challenges.
Yep. All you, man. I don't play Runeblade. All right. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. I should block for 3. That's it. That's why
All right. Vexing Malice.
I don't like the art for this one. Mostly because the 2 pillars on the side make it look like it's like some weird letterbox.
Yeah, like it's incomplete, right?
I know that the point is that you're supposed to be like peeking out from like some corner.
Yeah.
On the effect, it's just great. Like it's always good to have a two arcane damage. It's the first Runeblade card that deals 2 arcane damage, and it usually punches through your opponent's arcane defenses so that you can actually trigger your arcane damage effects Whereas if your opponent is just running one Arcane Barrier, it's really easy to block all of your little tiny pings.
Yep. Like, who's gonna run 2 Arcane Barrier against a Runeblade?
Yeah,
Dude, let's be real.
yeah. Usually, like heroes don't want to gimp their moveset to include another Arcane Barrier.
Yeah.
That being said, I do feel like Azalea is pretty well positioned against this card.
Oh yeah. She already has like innate
Yeah,
built-in Arcane Barrier, but the problem is that
exactly.
she's so red heavy that do you even want to block Arcane?
True, that's true.
Okay. And then we go to its lesser cousin.
Yeah,
Arcane
Crackle, where it's just -1 Arcane damage for -1 cost. Less good. It's still just Arcane damage, right? So you still kind of are fine running it. Everything about this is just discount Vexing Malice.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine to it's fine to add if you want to pop your blue Seas of Agony, right? But that's what Shadowverse is for, and that's what Bounty Demagon's for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I
Okay,
think it's
and
just
that's
a fine
all
card.
the shadow classes and their class cards.
Yep. So, any generics that you want to talk about? I could just.
Sure. I can talk about actually most of these. I'll just quickly go through all of the equipment.
Okay.
I do like how all 3 of the non-defensive equipment, Blood Drop Brigade, Stubby Hammers, and Time Skippers, play to different aspects of the set. Or I guess Blood Drop Brigade and Stubby Hammers kind of go together, but Time Skippers appeals to the different aspect of the set as Stubby Hammers and Blood Drop Brigade do. So I do appreciate that in terms of limited design.
Mm-hmm.
Stubby Hammers is probably the closest to playable, even though Time Skippers is still, you can still run it and not be embarrassed. All of these are they're just fine for limited. It's kind of embarrassing to run Blood Drop Brigade for constructed, but I can see where it's useful. Yeah, that's about it. You pitch your time skip potion to play Time Skippers, and that's about it.
And then you no. You pay the Time Skippers to play 2 Time Snap potions. Easy.
Oh, true. Yeah.
But actually, I think Time Skippers might be main boarded into a lot of builds if Aura Prism gets too popular, because you need to get around those Arclight Sentinels.
Yeah, it's a surprising sideboard card basically, where you want to have this effect on demand when you need it for Prism.
Yeah.
But it feels like a card that you want to build around, whereas its actual use is something that's you don't build around it, you just have it because you can play it.
Well, a lot of Bravos are already putting this into their main board because of Prism. They can only attack once, right?
But they can run that, right?
I know. Like they have enough blues to run it. Yeah, I know. I actually have it in my Ninja deck too, but I haven't played against an Aura Prism yet, so I don't really know how good they really are. And then Ironhide stuff.
Yeah, Ironhide stuff. They're good for limited. They're good because you have enough things to do on your opponent's turn that paying the red resource is reasonable. But they're just there. They're filler, and they're fine.
Yeah, I think they're fine too. It's interesting to see these new effects where it's like if you defend it, you have to pay, but like this and Phantasm Footsteps.
It's a nice, interesting dimension to armor that it helps give it expand the design space a little. I'm kind of concerned because I feel like you need to have some sort of similar armor set in every set. So I wonder how long this will last before we just have to start reprinting like Iron Hides or Iron Rods.
Yeah. Well, what do you think the next upgrade is going to be? 3 defense for pay 2? Is it going to be like Steel Hide? No, I'm just kidding. It's going to be something on Iron, isn't it? I don't know.
Who knows?
Maybe
right. Discard a card, pay 2.
Ooh. For 3?
Sorry, discard a card to get 3, right? So maybe.
Maybe.
Who knows?
I mean, it does get around reprise. Yeah. All right. Let's get into generic Majestics.
Yes. We can cover the generic Majestics and a couple of the generic rares and commons. I don't think it's worthy to mention all of them.
Sure.
Exude Confidence is one of those. It's the complex generic card that feels like it's good enough to go in every deck. The one thing that's stopping it is the 3 defense, which I appreciate. I think Command and Conquer should have had 2 defense as well.
Yeah.
I think this is a very fine design card. It's almost too powerful because of how well it gets around defense reactions and can push in damage. But I guess it's good enough to replace certain cards in older decks. I think that's what they're going for.
Yeah. I think this might be pretty good in Blitz because of the life total is so low. This can kind of blow out some of the more defensive decks really early on. Yeah, you'll probably see this in Blitz. Constructed, maybe not so much.
Yeah, definitely. Nourishing Emptiness. This is actually, I think, one of the best generic card in the set, just because it's a great turn 1 play, and on every other turn, it's just a 2-cost 6 attack 3 defense card, which is never really embarrassing to use.
Yep. And everyone's subbing this in because of Prism. So
yes, of course. So everybody's using this one. It's also good with both Levia, or not as much with Levia, but okay with Levia, and it's great in Kano and great in Dorinthi. So hey,
yeah, people say it's good in Levia, but my argument is you don't want your graveyard to ever run out. So
True.
If it ever gets to that point, I think you might be screwed.
True.
Yeah, but that's yeah.
I mean, it's still a 2-cost 6 attack, right? So it's it's never that bad.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but if you are like in the mid game and you have no cards left in your graveyard and you're actually able to pull this off, I don't know what you're going to do afterwards though. You have a 5-card hand, but nothing in your graveyard to banish. Or maybe
Well, presumably, if you play this, your opponent has 3 cards in hand they can block with or attack with. So that 5-card hand probably just turns into a 2-card hand where you block most of your attacks.
No, I guess that's true. But yeah, I think the. What do you think about the art on this one? It's it seemed very out of place to me. Like it went back to like the Asian roots.
I feel like that's a thing with all the generics. Exude Confidence looks like it takes place in like Volcor or something. This looks like it takes place in Mysteria, and Rouse the Ancients, which is coming up next, takes place apparently in Aria. So I think that they're trying to represent the non-represented regions of the world in generic cards.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Yeah, I was looking at this card and I was like, this seems a little bit out of place. But at least it seems to fit into my theme of for my ninja deck, so
yeah,
I'm not
exactly,
complaining.
Right?
I'm not complaining. All right.
So speaking of which, let's go to Rouse the Ancients.
Yeah.
I love this card. Mostly because it's another one of those high roll cards that looks great. You have to actually plan around it. Obviously, it's seeing play in Bravo because it's a blue card that hits for 7. It's the
go again
prerequisite is super easy to meet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good card. Obviously blocked for 2, which is totally fine with me because it's I'd rather not have too many generics that block for 3 if they're gonna be replacing cards or want to replace cards in other decks.
Yep.
Because otherwise you get run into the issue of power creep, right?
So, yeah. I think this card's just fine. Bravo can just slot it in really easily. It's not too hard to pull off because you have the high powered attacks. People have been thinking of playing it in Prism, but that means you have to be running very very red heavy and very yellow heavy. Well, red and yellow. If you do all yellows, it's not gonna work. Yeah, but I'm not convinced that it's gonna be good in Prism. But I mean, I'm not the greatest deck builder, so who knows?
Yeah. And it's also that Prism just wants yellow sometimes too. So.
All right.
Okay, cool. I want to mention out Muscle, especially red, only because I did not think this was at all playable until I saw Bravo playing it. And I thought it was a pretty interesting choice, despite not being super amazing. Yeah, that's about it. It's a fun card, and it was surprisingly playable, which goes to show how interesting how flexible the system is right now, where cards that you don't think are playable might have a home because just of how things shake up and what you need with the deck and how things fit in.
Yeah, specifically red out Muscle. If you think about it, this is like the same thing with Phantasm. It gets threats out of your opponent's hand if they want to prevent it from getting go again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's about it. Seek Horizon, I don't think it's worthy to talk about. Seek Horizon and Rise Above all kind of fall into the same. This looks like it might be playable in Azalea just because it says top of deck, but I don't think it ever works out that way because it's just kind of, it means you lose a card, right? It's essentially just
Seek Horizon.
It's
Yep.
fine to set up, but it's nothing threatening, right? So
Yeah.
it's like okay.
Yeah, so I played against Kenny with Seek Horizon, and it was okay. It got like a few dominated attacks, but you lose card advantage, which isn't good.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Prism really, or sorry, Azalea really needs that card advantage.
Yeah.
Same with Rise Above, where it's fine to set up next turn, but you're trading the filtering or the opt from Fate Foreseen or Sink Below for guaranteeing a card in your hand to be usable with Azalea's ability,
Yeah.
which I don't think is worth it.
Yep.
And obviously, the mana cost is basically just saying use the alternate cost instead. Don't play me for two cost.
Yeah. 2 for 4 is not great.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, you can pitch a blue and then you can pay into Ironhide. That's definitely a play that I've done for limited.
Yeah. And so for the rest of the generics, I don't really feel like it's necessary to talk about them. I guess we can go over the belittle / minnowism combo,
Yeah. Yep.
which I think is. So they do this in looks like in every mainline core set where you have at least two cards in the generic pool that play off of each other directly. Sunkiss, Moonwish, Nimblism, Slogism, and their respective attacks.
Nimble Strike and
Regurgitating Slug, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
This is continuing that. I'm glad that they're finding ways to mix up generic attacks to make them interesting. I wonder if they're maybe eating up too much design space though. But who knows? I have no clue about their future plans. And if you told me to design some generic cards, I probably would not be able to design anything interesting. So I trust in their design skills.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, there's some ninjas that are running belittle, so
yeah.
Belittle minimalism. I honestly don't know how good that is.
There's also Runeblade that runs it as like a budget version.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how good that it is. I don't think it's that great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the fact that you can build decks around it because people want to build decks around it because it's an interesting combo, means that it's a good design that should probably exist in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than that, Rally the Rearguard is interesting because it's a ability that we haven't seen before. I guess we kind of saw it in what's that? Reinforce the Line. We kind of saw that one where you have instant speed ways of increasing a card's defense. I really wonder what their philosophy is for cards being common, other than the fact that a class wants it for limited, because it doesn't seem like this seems like the card that would be at rare rather than common in a lot of other card games, because it's a unique effect that has been done before, so people might want to play it.
Sure. I just like it in Levia. That's it.
Yeah, it's good for turning 0 cost things to 3 defense.
Yeah. Plus, yeah, you get to sculpt your hand a little bit better for those discards.
Yep. And it helps a little bit for any attack reactions, right? So.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's it for Monarch.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I guess you can mention Memorial Ground too as like hey, Azalea can play this, but that's about it.
Yeah. Like the cards that I want to play in Azalea that I haven't tested out yet are Captain's Call, Memorial Ground, and just those two.
Yeah.
Maybe Warmonger's Recital, but that's so many. Say goodbye to my defense, man.
Yeah, I do feel like they're setting up a lot of things for the next set in the generics, where I feel like there might be some cards that might be worth taking another look at after the next set releases to see, okay, this was a seed for this theme, or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But for most part, generic cards are there just to fill packs and support the themes of the set, right? So.
Yeah, there's probably going to be something that looks at the top of your deck.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Probably Ranger.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not good at speculating, so
yeah, of course.
We'll see it when it comes.
Sounds good. Okay, I guess that's about it.
Yep. Hope you guys enjoyed that and with our insights and everything. Bye.